Every year, drivers waste hundreds, even thousands of dollars fixing simple problems that could have been avoided with a product most of us already own. That squeaky hinge that turns into a costly door replacement, that corroded battery terminal that kills your alternator. With WD-40, these repairs might never happen in the first place. Sounds crazy, right? But today, I'll prove how this everyday spray isn't just for squeaks. It's your secret weapon against car headaches that drain your wallet. Watch closely, because the hacks I'll show can literally buy years of life for your car's parts. Did you know WD-40 wasn't even designed for cars in the first place? Most people see it as a simple can of spray for squeaks or rust. But the story behind it explains why it's so much more powerful than that. Back in the early 1950s, engineers were facing a huge problem with missiles. These machines couldn't afford to have any moisture or corrosion creeping in, not even the tiniest bit. Imagine you're responsible for billion-dollar equipment during the height of the Cold War. Failure wasn't an option. That's where what we now call WD-40 came into play. It was developed specifically to shield those metal surfaces from rust and water damage, basically giving rockets a protective coat so they could survive almost any condition without breaking down. Now here's where it gets strange. A formula created for missiles and aerospace technology somehow made its way into millions of ordinary homes and garages. Think about that gap for a second. On one end, you've got engineers in lab coats working with classified weapons. On the other, you've got someone fixing a squeaky lawn chair or spraying it on a stubborn car door. That contrast seems bizarre, but it also tells you something powerful about the formula itself. If it's strong enough for rockets, it's probably overqualified for your driveway. So why is it called WD-40? Those letters stand for water displacement, and the number tells its own story. This was the 40th attempt to get the formula right. Picture the trial and error involved. 39 failed tries. 39 times where the formula either didn't protect properly or didn't hold up against real-world conditions. Then finally an attempt that hit the mark. The fact it took 40 tries tells you how precise it needed to be, and it also reveals the commitment behind it. This wasn't about making something that sort of worked. It was about creating a solution that completely drove away hidden moisture. For cars, that one piece, fighting back against water, just happens to be the secret weapon. Think about what moisture does to vehicles. It seeps into bolts, making them impossible to unscrew without snapping. It fogs over headlight covers, cutting your vision at night. It creeps around battery posts, leaving that chalky white crust that weakens your entire electrical system. Once you've got that mental picture, it clicks. A spray built around removing and blocking water doesn't just help, it directly attacks the root cause of most of these problems. When you see someone blast a rusty hinge or a stuck screw with WD-40 and magically get it moving again, that's not just lubrication. That's the water displacement factor at work, undoing corrosion right where it started. This is why the experts point out that WD-40 isn't just a lubricant, even though that's how most people use it. Yes, it loosens things up, but its real strength is penetration. It creeps into the tiniest cracks in metal pores, places where normal sprays won't reach, and forces out droplets of moisture hidden inside. That process doesn't just temporarily fix things, it slows down the entire cycle of rust and decay. It's one of the reasons why just a few cents worth of spray can save you hundreds of dollars in shop bills later. Instead of fighting rust after it's eaten away at your car, you're stopping it from winning in the first place. When you step back, it almost feels like an accident of history. A product designed to keep weapons safe from ocean spray and high humidity somehow became the go-to spray, sitting next to wrenches and jumper cables. But that twist of fate is also the reason why it works so well. It's over-engineered for the everyday tasks we throw at it. Protecting a missile from rust in the middle of salty sea air is a tougher job than protecting a car battery sitting on your driveway. The crossover from aerospace to everyday life is what makes this spray stand out from the dozens of other lubricants on the shelf. Now picture this. If a formula tough enough to shield a missile can protect equipment worth millions, imagine what it can do for something as common as your car battery, a corroded bolt, or even the hinge on your front door. It makes you wonder how many expensive issues you can prevent with just one can waiting in your garage. Why do so many drivers fail inspection for something as small as dull headlights? It seems minor, but those cloudy lenses are one of the most common reasons a car doesn't pass. It's not just about looks either. Faded headlights can reduce visibility by up to 80%, which makes night driving far more dangerous. The frustrating part is that most shops know this and quickly recommend expensive solutions. You're looking at $200 to $300 for professional restoration, and if they push you toward a full replacement, that bill can easily jump much higher. For anyone already watching their budget, that's money they didn't plan to spend, all because of hazy plastic on the front of their car. Now picture this. A driver is getting ready for a late-night trip. The car runs well, but when the headlights flip on, the beams look weak and yellow, barely reaching the end of the driveway. Instead of panicking or scheduling an appointment, the driver reaches for a can of WD-40. A few sprays directly on the cloudy lens, a quick wipe with a clean cloth, and suddenly that dull, faded headlight has a clear, glossy finish again. It takes less than a minute, and the difference is obvious right away. On the road, the beam stretches further, making signs and lane markers stand out clearly in the dark. What could have cost a few $100s is handled with a trick that costs just a fraction of a single cup of coffee. The science behind this is straightforward. Over time, headlights build up a thin layer of oxidation on the outer plastic surface. Sunlight, UV exposure, and road grime all contribute, and the result is the cloudy film that cuts down the light. WD-40 dissolves and loosens that thin layer enough that you can wipe it away. The lens hasn't been permanently restored. Underneath, the plastic may still be worn, but on the surface level, the clarity comes back almost instantly. Because the spray also leaves behind a light, slick coating, it helps water bead off and adds a short-term shine that makes the lens look newer than it really is. Experts often point out something that drivers notice immediately. Once you've cleared your headlights in this way, you don't just see cosmetic improvement, you see practical benefits. The light projection changes dramatically. Signs reflect brighter, the pattern of the beam spreads wider, and dark country roads feel much less intimidating. That extra visibility makes every night drive safer, especially for older drivers or anyone living in areas with limited street lighting. It's not permanent, but safety isn't about perfection. It's about what makes the car safe enough today, tonight, or this upcoming weekend trip. That small change buys real peace of mind at very little cost. Of course, there is a limitation to this trick. The oxidation always comes back because you haven't actually sanded or polished away the damaged layer permanently. In some cases, the haze can return in weeks, especially if the car sits outside in strong sunlight. But that temporary improvement buys you time, and in the world of car ownership, time matters. Instead of rushing into a $200 fix, you can plan it out, wait until budget allows, or even learn how to do a full restoration kit yourself. WD-40 isn't the final solution. It is an affordable stopgap that gives you breathing room before the bigger expense rolls around. So when you do the math, the value is obvious. One can of WD-40 might cost around $15. Spraying even a generous amount of it on both headlights probably translates to a few cents per use. For that price, you've effectively delayed or avoided a repair that could be more than 10 or 20 times the cost of the entire can. Over the course of a year, if this trick helps you pass inspection, keeps you from buying new bulbs prematurely, or simply spares you one stressful late-night drive with poor visibility, then that can has already paid for itself many times over. Headlights may seem like a surface detail, but they directly affect safety, inspection fees, and potential replacement costs. Think of it this way: every hazy headlight has only two paths. Either you restore it or you replace it. By using WD-40, you get a simple third option, one where the lens looks clear, the lights function properly, and your wallet remains untouched by another unexpected bill. It's a quick rescue for drivers who need a clear road ahead tonight, not a perfect solution next month. The key is remembering that quick rescue can keep you safe until you're ready for a permanent solution. And that's just one example of what this spray can do. If a few cents can prevent a repair bill on something as visible as your headlights, just think about the damage it can stop on far more expensive parts of your car. Because WD-40 isn't only about night driving, It can even protect the paint job that gives your car its value and appearance. What if your car refuses to start one morning and it has nothing to do with a dead battery? A lot of drivers assume a no start means the battery has completely failed, but in many cases it's simply corrosion on the terminals, stopping power from flowing properly. You pop the hood, and instead of clean metal, you see a thick, chalky white crust sitting around the posts. It looks bad enough that most people immediately panic, convinced it means a replacement. But in reality, that layer of corrosion is acting like insulation and keeping electricity from traveling. The battery may still hold a charge, but none of that power can get to the starter or the alternator efficiently, which triggers all sorts of issues that can feel like a failing system. Here's how it turns into an expensive problem. Corrosion on the terminals narrows the flow of electricity. That reduced connection means your starter, alternator, and even small accessories like lights and radios are straining more than they should just to get the proper current. Over time, that additional strain can cause these parts to wear out prematurely. Instead of fixing a simple surface issue for pennies, you end up with parts that truly need to be replaced. Many mechanics jump to swapping cables, clamps, or even full charging system components. Those repairs can range anywhere from $200 up to $400, depending on the shop and the parts involved, all because of something that could be fixed with a 2-minute cleaning. What makes this work is the formula. WD-40 cuts into the corrosion and loosens it enough to remove without too much force. It doesn't just clean either. It leaves a light protective layer across the metal that slows down the return of corrosion. That means spraying once today not only gets you back on the road, but it also buys you weeks or even months of protection before buildup happens again. Preventive use can be even better. A quick spray during a routine check under the hood can stop the corrosion cycle before it even builds to visible levels, keeping the flow of electricity strong year-round. Clean battery connections mean much more than just reliable starts. A secure electrical path ensures that your alternator doesn't overwork trying to push current through a bad connection. When that strain is removed, the alternator lasts longer, and you aren't left with a costly failure that takes down your entire charging system. The same goes for the starter. Clean connections deliver full voltage instantly, which is exactly what that part needs to operate properly. Even misfires in electronic sensors or dashboard warning lights can sometimes trace back to the simple issue of dirty terminals. Many drivers replace sensors or chase phantom problems when the actual culprit sits right on top of the battery. Every winter, thousands of drivers battle the same problem. You walk up to your car, key in hand, only to find the lock completely frozen. The key won't turn, the door won't open, and worst of all, you're stuck outside in freezing temperatures with no quick fix. Here's the surprising part. A few seconds with WD-40 the night before would have prevented the problem entirely. For such a small step, the payoff is huge, and it can save you more than just the headache of scraping ice off your windshield. The cause is simple. Moisture naturally collects inside door and trunk locks, especially after rain, melting snow, or even condensation. When the temperature drops overnight, that moisture freezes inside the tiny pins and tumblers of the lock cylinder. The result is a block of ice that not only prevents the key from turning, but in extreme cold can trap or even break a key if you force it. For drivers who depend on older cars without keyless entry, this turns into a stranded morning before work, or worse, a dangerous delay in an emergency. Modern cars with remote systems may escape this issue, but millions of vehicles on the road still rely on traditional locks. The reason it works comes down to the way WD-40 displaces water. The liquid seeps deep into the lock mechanism, driving out any traces of moisture that would otherwise freeze solid. On top of that, it layers a thin protective film along the internal components of the lock, which acts like a barrier against future condensation. This combo, removing water and preventing more from sneaking in, makes it one of the simplest preventative tools available for winter. While it won't last forever, regular reapplication, especially right before a storm, cuts off the freezing problem before it can even start. For older vehicles, this trick isn't just useful, it's critical. Traditional lock cylinders on older sedans, trucks, and even classic cars don't have the same shielding as modern systems. That means they're more exposed to temperature swings and more prone to trapping condensation. A freezing episode here doesn't just cause inconvenience, it risks damaging the locking mechanism permanently. In many cases, owners have snapped keys inside frozen locks, a mistake that requires drilling out the cylinder or calling a locksmith, both of which come with steep charges and added downtime. The money side of this is where things really hit. A frozen lock might seem like a small annoyance, but the quickest solution many people turn to is dialing a locksmith. These calls often carry fees ranging from $80 to $150 just for showing up, not counting the actual service if parts are damaged. Add in potential towing or replacement of the lock cylinder, and you're staring at a bill that no one planned for. By contrast, one can of WD-40, which can be used hundreds of times, costs less than a single service call. Even if you never face lock freezing in the future, the cost is so low that the protection easily outweighs the risk. Now picture a row of cars parked outside after a major winter storm. Every vehicle is covered in ice, the doors sealed, windshields opaque with frost. Owners stand around pulling at handles, trying to warm keys with lighters, or dialing for roadside help. Among them, one driver walks up, inserts the key, turns it easily, and is inside within seconds. The only difference was a quick spray the night before. It is scenes like these that prove how small, preventative habits separate drivers who get stuck waiting in the cold from those already warming up the engine. WD-40 isn't a miracle cure, but it is one of the most effective preventive tools you can keep in your garage. Small steps, freeing stuck bolts, preventing rust, protecting battery terminals, add up to hundreds or even thousands in avoided costs. Most repairs start small, and catching them early saves money before damage spreads. So here's the challenge. Before calling a mechanic, try these WD-40 tricks in your own car today. Sometimes the solution to a $1,000 repair is sitting in a can that costs less than lunch. The smartest fix isn't always expensive. It's often the simplest one. If this helped you save thousands of dollars, tap like and subscribe for proven DIY tips. Be first to catch tricks with WD-40 that save you thousands in repairs when it drops.